This is a recording of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta class held on November 2nd, 2022. Due to technical issues, the recording begins from the end of the introduction of the book.
In this way, he is just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Although Chaitanya is Sri Krishna himself, he appears as a devotee to teach people in general how to love Krishna. Similarly, Ādi-līlā appeared just to distribute the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Thus, he is also the Lord incarnated as a devotee. Krishna is manifested in 5 different expansions, and he and all of his associates appear as devotees of the Supreme Lord in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Nityananda, Ādi-līlā, Gadadhara, Srivas, and others. In all cases, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the source of energy for all his devotees. Since this is the case, if we take shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for the successful execution of Krishna consciousness, we are sure to make progress. One devotional song by Narottam Das Thakur states, "My dear Lord Chaitanya, please have mercy upon me. There is no one who is as merciful as you. My plea is most urgent because your mission is to deliver fallen souls, and no one is more fallen than I. I beg priority." The author of Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, was an inhabitant of Vrindavana and a great devotee. He had been living with his family in Katwa, a small town in a district of Burdwan in Bengal. His family also worshipped Radha Krishna. And once, when there was some misunderstanding amongst his family about devotional service, Krishnadas Kaviraj was advised by Nityananda Prabhu in a dream to leave home and go to Vrindavana. Although he was very old, he started out that very night and went to live in Vrindavana. While he was there, he met some of the Goswamis, principal disciples of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was requested to write Caitanya-caritāmṛta by the devotees of Vrindavana. Although he began this work at a very old age, by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, he finished it. Today, it remains the most authoritative book on Chaitanya's philosophy and life. When Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was living in Vrindavana, there were not very many temples. At that time, Madan Mohan, Govindaji, and Gopinatha were the 3 principal temples. As a resident of Vrindavana, he offered his respects to the deities in these temples and requested God's favor. My progress in spiritual life is very slow, so I'm asking your help. In Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Krishnadas first offers his obeisances to Madan Mohan Vigraha, the deity who can help us progress in Krishna consciousness. In the execution of Krishna consciousness, our first business is to know Krishna and our relationship with him. To know Krishna is to know oneself, and to know oneself is to know one's relationship with Krishna. Since this relationship can be learned by worshipping Madan Mohan Vigraha, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami first establishes his relationship with him. When this is established, Krishnadas begins to worship the functional deity Govinda. Govinda resides eternally in Vrindavana. In the spiritual world of Vrindavana, the buildings are made of touchstone, the cows are known as Surabhi cows, givers of abundant milk, and the trees are known as wish-fulfilling trees, for they yield whatever one desires. In Vrindavana, Krishna herds the Surabhi cows and he is worshipped by hundreds and thousands of gopis, cowherd girls, who are all goddesses of fortune. When Krishna descends to the material world, this same Vrindavana descends just as an entourage accompanies an important personage. Because when Krishna comes, his land also comes. Vrindavana is not considered to exist in the material world. Therefore, devotees take shelter of the Vrindavana in India, for it is considered to be a replica of the original Vrindavana. Although one may complain that no kalpavriksha wish-fulfilling trees exist there, when the Goswamis were there, the kalpavriksha were present. It is not that one can simply go to such a tree and make demands. One must first become a devotee. The Goswamis would live under a tree for one night only, and the trees would satisfy all their desires. For the common man, this may all seem very wonderful, but as one makes progress in devotional service, all this can be realized. Vrindavana is actually experienced as it is by persons who have stopped trying to derive pleasure from material enjoyment. When will my mind become cleansed of all hankering for material enjoyment, so I will be able to see Vrindavana? One great devotee asked, the more Krishna conscious we become, and the more we advance, the more everything is revealed as spiritual. Thus, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami considered Vrindavana in India to be as good as the Vrindavana in the spiritual sky. And in Caitanya-caritāmṛta, he describes Radharani and Krishna as seated beneath a wish-fulfilling tree in Vrindavana on a throne decorated with valuable jewels. There, Krishna's dear friends, the cowherd boys and the gopis, serve Radha and Krishna by singing, dancing, offering betel nuts and refreshments, and decorating their lordships with flowers. Even today in India, people decorate thrones and recreate this scene during the month of July. Generally at that time, people go to Vrindavana to offer their respects to the deities there. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami maintains that the Radha and Krishna deities show us how to serve Radha and Krishna. The Madan Mohan deities simply establish that I'm your eternal servant. With Govinda, however, there is actual acceptance of service, and therefore he is called the functional deity. The Gopinath deity is Krishna as master and proprietor of the gopis. He attracted all the gopis or cowherd girls by the sound of his flute, and when they came, he danced with them. These activities are all described in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. These gopis were childhood friends of Krishna, and they were all married. For in India, the girls are married by the age of 12. The boys, however, are not married before 18. So Krishna, who was 15 or 16 at the time, was not married. Nonetheless, he called these girls from their homes and invited them to dance with him. That dance is called the Ādi-līlā dance, and it is the most elevated of all the Vrindavana pastimes. Krishna is therefore called Gopinath because he's the beloved master of the gopis. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami petitions the blessings of Lord Gopinath. May that Gopinath, the master of the gopis, Krishna, bless you. May you become blessed by Gopinath. Just as Krishna attracted the gopis by the sweet sound of his flute, the author of Caitanya-caritāmṛta prays that he will also attract the reader's mind by his transcendental vibration. Vishwakarma Prabhu, would you like to make any announcements or comments?
Not at this moment, but I wanted to ask somebody else to carry on with the reading. It's going so nicely. And thank you everyone for attending. I'd like to make an announcement at the end on the expansion of our program.
I can read for a while.
Who?
Balaram.
Whoever wants to read, please be our guest.
Go ahead, Balaram Prabhu.
Okay. Ādi-līlā, Chapter 1. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than the combined form of Sri Radha and Krishna. He is the life of those devotees who strictly follow in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami are the two principal followers of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami, who acted as the most confidential servitor of Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, known as Vishwambar in his early life. A direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami was Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. The author of Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, stands as the direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. The direct disciple of Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami was Srila Narottam Das Thakur, who accepted Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti as his servitor. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur accepted Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, who initiated Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, who in turn initiated Srila Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji, the spiritual master of Om Vishnupad, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, the divine master of our humble self. Since we belong to this chain of disciplic succession from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this edition of Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta will contain nothing newly manufactured by our teeny brains, but only remnants of foodstuff originally eaten by the Lord himself. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not belong to the mundane plane of the three qualitative modes. He belongs to the transcendental plane beyond the reach of imperfect sense perception of a living being. Even the most erudite mundane scholar cannot approach the transcendental plane unless he submits himself to the transcendental sound with a receptive mood, for in that mood only can one realize the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What will be described herein, therefore, has nothing to do with the experimental thoughts created by the speculative habits of inert minds. The subject matter of this book is not a mental concoction, but factual spiritual experience that one can realize only by accepting the line of disciplic succession described above. Any deviation from that line will bewilder the reader's understanding of the mystery of Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, which is a transcendental literature meant for the postgraduate study of one who has realized all the Vedic literatures, such as the Upanishads and Vedanta, and their natural commentaries, such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. This edition of Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta is presented for the study of sincere scholars who are really seeking the absolute truth. It is not the arrogant scholarship of a mental speculator, but a sincere effort to serve the order of a superior authority, whose service is the life and soul of this humble effort. It does not deviate even slightly from the revealed scriptures, and therefore anyone who follows in the disciplic succession will be able to realize the essence of this book simply by the method of oral reception. The first chapter of Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta begins with 14 Sanskrit verses that describe the absolute truth. Then the next 3 Sanskrit verses describe the principal deities of Vrindavan, namely Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Radha Govindadev, and Sri Radha Gopinath. The first of the 14 verses is the symbolic representation of the supreme truth, and the entire first chapter is in actuality devoted to this single verse, which describes Lord Chaitanya in his 6 different transcendental expansions. The first manifestation described is the spiritual master, who appears in 2 plenary parts, called the initiating spiritual master and instructing spiritual master. They are identical because both of them are phenomenal manifestations of the supreme truth. Next described are the devotees, who are divided into 2 classes, namely apprentices and the graduates. Next are the incarnations, avatars, of the Lord, who are explained to be non-different from the Lord. These incarnations are considered in 3 divisions: incarnations of the potency of the Lord, incarnations of his qualities, and incarnations of his authority. In this connection, Lord Sri Krishna's direct manifestations and his manifestations for transcendental pastimes are discussed. Next considered are the potencies of the Lord, of which 3 principal manifestations are described: the consorts of the kingdom of God Vaikuntha, the queens of Dwarkadam, and highest of all, the damsels of Brajdam. Finally, there is the Supreme Lord himself, who is the fountainhead of all these manifestations. Lord Sri Krishna and his plenary expansions are all in the category of the Lord himself, the energetic absolute truth, whereas his devotees, his eternal associates, are his energies. The energy and the energetic are fundamentally one, but since their functions are differently exhibited, they are simultaneously different also. Thus, the absolute truth is manifested in diversity in one unit. This philosophical truth, which is pursuant to the Vedanta Sutras, is called Achincha Veda Tattva, or the conception of simultaneous oneness and difference. In the latter portion of this chapter, the transcendental position of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and that of Srila Nityananda Prabhu are described with reference to the above theistic facts. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Ram Raghava, if we could move forward to request the group any questions they might have for the speaker, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. We can move forward with that, as it's maybe time for someone to ask some interesting questions about some what we would call very advanced complex information that Prabhupada has so beautifully given us in this Caitanya-caritāmṛta introduction on the life of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yes, please. If anybody has a question, please press the hand link, the button, and we'll take questions one after another. Yes, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu.
Okay, I want to point out something on page number 17 for those of you who are reading from the original edition. Because what you will find if you go online on the PrabhupadaBooks.com, they've avoided this page 17 and 18. They go straight from the introduction to text number 1. They've completely avoided page 17 and 18, and here's why. If you look at the second paragraph on chapter 1, page 17, it refers to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur accepted Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, who initiated Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur. Now, according to the history of our Sampradaya, this Bhaktivedanta Thakur had received an official initiation from somebody named Bipin Bihari Goswami, who was one of the descendants of one of these lines of Nityananda. Now, they purposely have avoided this. There was an article that was written by a devotee named Dear Govinda, who sent a request to the BBT to explain why they have changed. Let me just read a portion of it because this is a very important point. It says, BBT admits books changed to fit GBC philosophy. The BBT could not allow Srila Prabhupada to teach that Jagannath Das Babaji actually initiated Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, for that would indirectly sanction Srila Prabhupada initiating for many generations to come simply via his transcendental knowledge, with the formal initiation administered via the Ritvik system that he set up. We highlighted previously in newsletter number 20 how Bhakti-Charu Swami, Bengali translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam, had omitted a very key verse from Srila Prabhupada's original version. The omitted verse in question with itself has destroyed the GBC's position that they were duly authorized to be Diksha Gurus in ISKCON. This, of course, was shocking, since it showed that Srila Prabhupada's books were being edited not to bring them closer to the originals as claimed, but rather doctored to prop up the GBC's bogus guru philosophy. Though we had been also aware of many other controversial changes made to Srila Prabhupada's books, the BBT had always claimed that they were made to actually correct errors made by Srila Prabhupada's hippie editors. Thus, they were not actually changing Srila Prabhupada's books, but Hayagriva's incorrect versions of the books, and thereby actually restoring the books back to how Srila Prabhupada actually wanted them. However, thanks to the diligent efforts of His Grace Dear Govinda Prabhu, the chairman of the ISKCON Office of Child Protection, we now have evidence that the current BBT, which is controlled by GBC supporters, are making changes motivated slowly by the desire to doctor Srila Prabhupada's books so that they fit in with whatever happens to be the prevailing view instituted in ISKCON by the GBC. Some time back, devotees had noticed that a new 9-volume edition of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta had made a deliberate change from Srila Prabhupada's original version, not unlike the one made by Bhakti-Charu mentioned earlier. Srila Prabhupada's Caitanya-caritāmṛta states the following: Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur accepted Jagannath Das Babaji, who initiated Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, who in turn initiated Srila Gaura Das Babaji. In the new BBT doctored 9-volume edition, the same passage reads, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur accepted Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, the spiritual master of Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, who in turn accepted Srila Gaura Das Babaji. In other words, it has been decided that contrary to what Srila Prabhupada states, Jagannath Das Babaji did not really initiate Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur after all. Now, the reason for the BBT changing Srila Prabhupada's teaching here is very significant. Since the GBT maintains that the relationship between Jagannath Das Babaji and Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur was based not on formal initiation, but rather on the transmission of transcendental knowledge. Once it is accepted that the transmission of divine transcendental knowledge alone constitutes initiation, then the objections made by the GBC to the Ritvik system of initiation crumble, since Srila Prabhupada could also initiate us with transcendental knowledge. And there's a whole series of arguments that are given. I'll try to forward this from my cell phone. There's some very interesting arguments, but it shows how dangerous this whole idea of changing and editing Srila Prabhupada's books. This is a typical example of a political change motivated by nonsensical reasons. Very important point. Any comments or remarks or questions?
Thank you. Yes, Bhakta Ronald has his hand raised.
Yes, we know that Srila Prabhupada gave the direction of management, and in nowhere in the direction of management is the GBC supposed to edit Prabhupada's books. In nowhere. Prabhupada says I've created a separate entity for that. So they're not only, doing offenses, they're doing offenses at different, multiple offenses, not just one thing. So I just want to make that point there.
That's a very important point. Thank you. Any other comments? I just want to relate an incident. When 1970, I had come from Montreal to Los Angeles in the summer, and Srila Prabhupada was forming the governing body commission with the direction of management. I had a conversation with one of Srila Prabhupada's personal servants named Kartikeya. And I asked him, what is the function of this GBC? We know what a temple president is supposed to do, what a Sankirtan leader is supposed to do, but what is this new entity, the GBC? And he said, well, they're meant to manage the expansion of temples and make sure that the standards are followed. And in the future, the function of the GBC is to make sure that Srila Prabhupada's teachings are not changed or altered in any way. So we know from practical history and our own personal experiences that these individuals who were meant to protect Srila Prabhupada's teachings and Srila Prabhupada's society have basically deviated from that instruction, which is why this is a very important point of political manipulation of Srila Prabhupada's books in a way that was never be approved by His Divine Grace. Any other comment? Question? Yes, Vishwakarma Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
It was something that took place in the society from the early 70s, where certain people, godbrothers of ours, saw an opportunity for success, material success in a spiritual movement that Prabhupada had set up. Now, I was speaking to Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu about this. If you look at all the beautiful pictures we're seeing online, Jiva Goswami, you get all these pictures come up of Prabhupada with his disciples. What do you see when you're looking at the pictures? I'll answer so it's not so, nebulous. What you're seeing is a bunch of young men with an old man, in a sense. You see all of these young faces, whether it's a Tamal Krishna or a Kirtananda or a Bhavananda. Like if you see their pictures now, if they're still alive, the photos are different. They're all old men. But when Prabhupada started our movement, it was all young men. Now, what is it like, Ram Raghava, when you're a young man? What is your ambition? Well, our ambition is to take over the world, to become, if you're a straight karmi, you want to be the greatest doctor, or you want to be the greatest engineer, or you want to be the top politician, or you want to be the top musician, or you want to be the top movie maker. So what we had was a group of people within our movement that Prabhupada had recruited who had this ambition. And this ambition was to become guru. It's obvious that that's what happened, that Tamal Krishna and Kirtananda, Satsrup, all these people were looking for that role as soon as Prabhupada left the planet. In fact, they were already preparing for that. In the case of my godbrother Drupada, who was the head pujari in Vrindavan, Bhavananda went to him directly and told him, take the money out of the Krishna Balaram Deity Fund and let us build 11 Vyasasans for all these new gurus that have been decided upon illegally by this group of ambitious, and I must say, ambitious Americans, very ambitious American people. And they went ahead and constructed a society that was focused on the guru business. Prabhupada speaks about the guru business. Yaśodā-nandana has brought up a very interesting point, factual point about the removal of this information from the books to justify their position. Number one, very important for us to understand that. Number two, they stole the rights to the BBT from a very weak membership of trustees at the time. They stole it and started to illegally publish books. They've carried on now. They're introducing their own books as a priority into the mission. Just understand this is not a small thing. They are seriously ambitious because you get in this particular situation where you've got worshipers, you've got money, you've got a comfortable living, you get respect and honor. Isn't what every rock star wants? Every person in life wants to dream about this. I don't have to work. All I have to do is pose, pretend, pose, posture as this spiritual leader, and I get everything. It's a good business. You know, I know all of us here have struggled through life, you know, to live and survive in the material world, not on Prabhupada's dhoti. So this mission that we have is very important, extremely important, and our coming together is also extremely important. Some of us, recently we got some people initiated. When you get initiated, that means what are you supposed to do now? Step up. When people joined the mission in the 70s, like in Toronto, I'll give you an example. We bought a very big building for Prabhupada, one of the biggest in the world, a big Christian church. We did it with a team. It wasn't a one-man show. We all worked together as a team. And through teamwork, we achieved amazing things. And that's what I see before us, is this amazing opportunity for our group of people. And we have a very good turnout today. Congratulations to everyone. We have a great opportunity to do a lot more. And so I've written out in the notes here today about a planned expansion of our program. I'll just go through it quickly. So we're planning an internet channel called PDA TV Network. Now these classes, which we've expanded with 3, are going to expand to a Nectar of Devotion class. Istagosti. The Istagosti will be more of a discussion on issues like we were talking about right now. We're going to isolate that into an Istagosti program where people will want to come to the class and ask questions. Well, what about Kirtananda? What about Bhaktivedanta? What about Radhanath? Like that, in that type of class. We'll have the Bhagavatam class. We're going to do reruns of it, Ram Raghava, so that people can see it in different segments of the world because of time restraints. Same with Caitanya-caritāmṛta and Bhagavad Gita. We're going to have a Bhakta program class once a week. So people that want to become Bhaktas, who want to move forward to get initiation, they can come to the class. and specifically be targeted into that information. Cooking classes, kids programming, movies on Prabhupada, Prabhupada lectures, Prabhupada bhajans, Prabhupada Kirtans. And we're going to do an ITV partnership where we have hundreds of hours of ITV programming that my friend Nisringanandana has. We'll be able to select through that and build out a whole programming system week by week. Now think about it, everyone, how big this is potentially. Because, you know, you can go out on the street and chant. There's no harm in that. Like, I'm planning to do Harinam here in Hamilton. When I see the people on the street, they're pretty tired. But many people are taking advantage of technology to create an amazing connectivity with billions of people. Billions. This is a revolution we're going to conduct of presenting the absolute truth to people that Prabhupada is the Diksha Guru and Siksha Guru for our movement. We do not associate with members from the Gaudiya Math, and we do not use the adulterated books. So that's all I wanted to say right now. I'm not been feeling well. I think I have COVID or something, but please, Yaśodā.
Jiva Goswami Prabhu, please go ahead.
I just wanted to make clear the distinction between PrabhupadaBooks.com and KrishnaPath.org. Is it a fact that you are reading from the same book that is available on KrishnaPath.org?
I have not seen the distinction between both. All I know is when I go to the PrabhupadaBooks.com, that page is missing. That page 17 and 18 is missing for whatever reason, whether it is conscious or unconscious omission or whatever. So it's a very important point, because this is the original book here that was published in 1974. And that section is missing. There's definitely a political implication of suppressing Srila Prabhupada's original writing, not making them available. Let me give you another example. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 1972 Bhagavad Gita, when you look at the index, there are so many references to the word spiritual master. In 1983, when they published the adulterated, non-authorized, edited Bhagavad Gita, they deleted many of these references to the word spiritual master in the index, because many people would go to the index, look at the word spiritual master, and refer back to the text. Now, this is very, very dangerous thing they have done, not just with the text of Bhagavad Gita, but the format of the book. In 1983, they deleted the pictures of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Jagannath Das Babaji. They took them out of the book. So this is a very, very dangerous, insidious thing they have done. That's why we should always try to stick to the original text. Now, if Krishna Path as the original book, I have not checked that. I could try to check that, but it's very important for us to understand the importance of the other original books. Any other comment?
Yes. So when we see the text on the screen as you're reading, is that from a book or is that from a website?
I don't know. I mean, Krishna Path, they have the ebooks, and I don't see. I'm trying to find the Caitanya-caritāmṛta here.
Maybe Bhaktivedanta Prabhu could answer that question.
Yes, Hare Krishna. What I'm showing on the screen are actually scans from the original book, which I think Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu is using. So it's the same thing scanned. And there's a Google Drive with all the original books scanned. We can share the link again. for that.
Okay. Nice.
That's
Any other
exactly what I was,
comments or
that's exactly what I was looking for is what he just said. Thank you.
Ram
So
I'm
Raghava,
trying to-
please.
it's almost 5 after 9.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment. These classes are scheduled. So anybody that has a timetable, they have to meet. By all means, thank you for attending the class. It was scheduled from 8 to 9. If anybody wants to stay on, they're welcome. Remember, we have a class on Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Sunday. And please try to invite a good person with us, as we can build our network and our spirit of cooperation to serve the mission of Lord Chaitanya, which is a great opportunity for all of us. Ram Raghava?
Yes. I'd like to announce one small change for this weekend because I have to work on Saturday. So I've exchanged Saturday and Sunday with Madhu Kanta Prabhu, who's initiated now, Bhakta Michael, who's now Madhu Kanta Prabhu. So he's going to be the moderator for the Saturday Bhagavad Gita class, and then I will do the one on Sunday for the Srimad Bhagavatam. And there will be an invitation being sent out with the correct link.
Is this video immediately available on YouTube so I can share it, or is it going to be uploaded?
It can be uploaded the next day.
Okay, great. That's fantastic, Dr. Ron. Please put it in your network.
Sure.
Venkat. Please.
I had a question for Srimad Bhagavatam. We read from the original, 1962 edition before Prabhupada even went to the US. So does that mean the original edition that was published afterwards, is that authorized? Is it better to read from 1962, even though it's just the first canto which is available? So that was my question.
What happened with that is when Prabhupada came to America, he had Hayagriva edit the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically the first 2 canto. Now, there's a big controversy that is still ongoing with that because some people feel that Jayadvaita, he revised the original 1972 version that was directly supervised by Prabhupada. Prabhupada personally supervised Hayagriva's editing. But they claim that they restored the Bhagavatam closer to the 1962 version. Now, I've got all 3 versions, and I can't figure out what they're talking about. The 1972 version, which is the first published version of the first and second canto, that was directly authorized by Srila Prabhupada. Now,
right.
The problem with this is that this movement is very confused with regards to what constitutes a bona fide edition of Srila Prabhupada's books. Because as we saw from what I was reading, when they republished the Caitanya-caritāmṛta from the 17 volumes to 9 volumes, they started to amend and delete some of Prabhupada's own statements. So there's a lot of things, just like in the Bhagavad Gita. Anybody who's familiar with the revised, adulterated Bhagavad Gita knows how they have translated chapter 4, text 34, from he has seen the truth to they have seen the truth. And my question is, who's they? Anybody who knows when this was written in 1983 knows the political, historical situation in ISKCON. This was at the height of this madness of the appointed system and the zonal system and all the concoctions they had. So it is a very dangerous idea for people to suggest that all of these changes that took place because during Prabhupada's manifested presence, many of the books, when they were being reprinted, were being re-edited. We found this out on January 22nd, 1977 in Vrindavan, when we were in Prabhupada's garden during the rascal editor conversation, and Prabhupada found out that some changes had been made to the books. And I made a comment that during the Ishopanishad reading we were having in a Gurukul, that we had like 2 or 3 different versions of the same book. And Prabhupada made a comment that the next printing, again, should be the original way. And Prabhupada made another comment in that conversation, they cannot change anything. So Prabhupada wanted the books restored to the first edition. Now, with regards to the first canto of the Bhagavatam, that is different because the first canto was edited in 1972, or prior to that, and it was approved by Srila Prabhupada. But then Jayadwata re-edited that book. So ISKCON has made a complete mess of this situation. But those devotees that are a little knowledgeable of the history of this can very easily recognize the political implications of all these changes. Just like we've seen in the Bhagavad Gita change, chapter 4, text 34. We've seen today in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, on page 17 of the Ādi-līlā of Caitanya-caritāmṛta, how they've changed the words that Jagannath Das Babaji initiated Bhaktivedanta Thakur. So this is a very troublesome situation because we do not have the power to change that. Of course, if somebody has the money to print like, a couple 100,000 copies of the book, I don't know what they can do, but this is a very troublesome situation, basically.
So after we finish the first canto, reading from the 1962 edition, then we can move on to the pre-1977 edition because I think Srila Prabhupada translated up to Canto 10, Chapter 14. So until...
Yeah, but having said that, the first 4 canto of the Bhagavatams were re-edited during Prabhupada's manifested presence.
Mm-hmm.
And if pre-1977 does not mean original first edition.
Okay.
You have to understand the history here. After these books, the first 4 cantos, after the first edition, when they were being reprinted, they started to re-edit the books. So we're going to be reading from the first editions,
so,
not the revised editions. Pre-1977 does not mean always original first edition. There are different editions, even during Prabhupada's manifested presence.
Okay. And so there's a 30-volume set which is being sold for, as the original. So do you know if that's the first editions or we cannot be sure?
That is first edition, bona fide edition, non-adulterated editions. Everybody should try to procure one of those. This is printed by KBI. It is the bona fide set. Vijay Pandit in Italy knows this. Other devotees also know this. Because my concern is once they're not available, I don't know if they'll be reprinted again. So everybody should try to get a set of those because they've reprinted them exactly from the first edition. Good point. Any other? Balaram Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Balaram Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, yes, that edition is available from the krishnastore.com. Here in Australia, Mandapa Prabhu, he runs that, and we're distributing those to devotees all over Australia. And excellent. I think, so whichever country you're in, if you log on to krishnastore.com, then the local suppliers will deliver that.
Very good.
That's the 30-volume original set. Beautiful set.
Any other comments or questions? Ram Raghava, do you have a kirtan ready?
Yes, I do. If you'll just give me 10 seconds.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur-bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur-bhakta-vrinda Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur-bhakta-vrinda Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur-bhakta-vrinda Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur-bhakta-vrinda
So thank you, everyone. At the next reading, we will begin with text 1 in chapter
1.
Chapter 1. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Vanta kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna.